Princess Zira stood at her window, watching the golden sunset paint the sky above the Valdorian capital city. The tall spires gleamed like precious metal in the dying light. She pressed her face against the cool glass, her silver scales catching the reflection. Even her own image reminded her why she remained hidden in this tower. 23 years had passed since her birth, and 23 years she had lived in shame. The royal family of Valdoria possessed golden scales that shimmered like sunlight. These scales marked them as blessed by the ancient gods, worthy of ruling the vast Valdorian empire that stretched across 12 star systems. Every royal child for 1,000 generations had been born with perfect golden scales. Every child except Zira. Her scales were silver. Beautiful silver that caught light like liquid mercury, but silver nonetheless. The royal physicians had examined her as a baby, searching for answers. The priests had performed ceremonies to cleanse what they called her curse. Nothing worked. Nothing changed the fact that Princess Zira was different. Different means defective, her mother, Queen Litha, often said during their rare meetings. Different means the gods have marked you as unworthy. Zira touched her arm where the silver scales formed intricate patterns. She had learned to see them as ugly because everyone else did. Her tutors avoided looking directly at her. Servants hurried through their duties in her chambers without making eye contact. Even her younger brother, Prince Kale, seemed embarrassed when forced to acknowledge her existence. The worst part was the suitors. Her parents still arranged meetings with nobles from other worlds, hoping someone might overlook her appearance for the political alliance. But each meeting ended the same way. The visiting lord or prince would enter the formal receiving room, take one look at her silver scales, and find an excuse to leave early. Some tried to be polite about their rejection. Others simply stared in horror and walked away. No one could love such a creature, Lord Vex had whispered to his companion after their failed meeting last month. He thought Zira could not hear him through the door, but Valdorian hearing was excellent. Those scales mark her as cursed. What if our children inherited such deformity? Zira had returned to her tower that night and cried until dawn. Now she spent her days alone, reading books about distant worlds and studying star charts. Her private tutor, an elderly scholar named Bren, was kind but formal. He taught her languages, mathematics, and galactic history with professional detachment. Sometimes she caught him looking at her with what might have been pity, but he never spoke of personal matters. "Your Highness," Bren said, entering her study with his usual bow. "I bring news from the palace. The Earth delegation arrives tomorrow." Zira turned from her window. "Earth? The human homeworld?" "Yes, Your Highness. A cultural exchange program. 3 humans will study our civilization while 3 of our people visit their world." Bren placed a data tablet on her desk. "These humans are said to be very different from us in appearance and customs." Zira picked up the tablet and studied the images of humans. They looked strange with their smooth skin instead of scales, their varied colors, and their small size compared to Valdorians. But something about their faces seemed kind. Their eyes held warmth she rarely saw in her own people. "Will I meet them?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Bren's expression grew uncomfortable. "I think not, Your Highness. Your parents plan to keep the meetings in the main palace. You understand?" Yes, she understood. They could not risk the humans seeing their defective daughter. It might damage diplomatic relations if these aliens learned that Valdorian royalty could produce such flawed offspring. "Of course," Zira said quietly. "I will remain in my chambers during their visit." That evening, as Zira prepared for sleep, she found herself thinking about the humans. She had read about Earth in her studies. It seemed like a remarkable world full of diverse creatures and cultures. The humans themselves came in many different appearances, unlike Valdorians who all shared similar features except for scale color. Perhaps beings who embraced such diversity might not find her appearance so shocking. But it did not matter. She would never meet them anyway. The next morning brought excitement to the palace. Zira could hear the bustle of preparation from her tower window. Servants hung banners, guards took their positions, and officials hurried back and forth across the courtyard. A small earth vessel had landed during the night, bringing the 3 human delegates. Zira tried to focus on her lessons with Bren, but her attention kept drifting. She wondered what the humans looked like in person, how they spoke, what they thought of Valdorian architecture and culture. "Perhaps we should study Earth languages today," Bren suggested, noticing her distraction. "The humans speak something called English as their common tongue. They spent the morning learning basic English phrases." Zira found the language fascinating, so different from Valdorian with its flowing sounds and complex tonal meanings. English seemed more direct, each word carrying clear meaning without the subtle layers of status and honor that colored every Valdorian conversation. "Beautiful," she practiced saying. "Love. Friend. Home." The words felt strange on her tongue but somehow warmer than their Valdorian equivalents. That evening, after Bren departed and the palace grew quiet, Zira felt restless. She had spent the entire day thinking about the humans while remaining locked away in her tower. The injustice of it burned in her chest. Why should she hide simply because others found her appearance disturbing? She made a decision that would change her life forever. Wrapping a dark cloak around her shoulders, Zira slipped from her chambers and made her way through the palace corridors. She knew these halls well from her childhood, before her parents decided she should remain hidden. The main palace was off-limits, but perhaps she could glimpse the humans from a distance. The corridors were dimly lit at night, perfect for avoiding the guards who patrolled in predictable patterns. Zira moved carefully, her bare feet silent on the polished stone floors. She reached the boundary between her tower section and the main palace without being seen. From there, she could hear voices speaking in English. The sound drew her forward despite the risk of discovery. She followed the voices to a balcony overlooking the central courtyard where the humans were staying in guest quarters. 3 humans stood in the garden below. 2 appeared to be older, discussing something with serious expressions. The third was younger, maybe close to her own age, with brown hair and clothes that seemed more casual than the formal robes worn by the others. This human was looking up at the stars with an expression of wonder that Zira recognized because she felt the same way when studying the night sky. As she watched, the young human said something to the others and began walking toward the palace. The older humans remained in the garden, but this one entered the building directly below Zira's hiding spot. Her heart raced. A human was inside the palace, walking alone through corridors not far from where she stood. This might be her only chance to see one up close, to satisfy her curiosity about these remarkable beings who had traveled between the stars to visit her world. Against all wisdom and protocol, Zira followed. She tracked the human through the hallways, staying far enough behind to avoid detection. The human seemed lost, pausing at intersections and looking around with confusion. Eventually, the human turned down a corridor that led to the restricted wing where Zira's tower was located. Zira realized what had happened. The human was looking for something, probably a bathroom, and had taken a wrong turn into the section of the palace where she was supposed to be hiding. If the human continued down this path, they would reach her tower. She should turn back. She should return to her chambers and pretend this encounter never happened. Instead, she found herself following the human toward her own territory. The human paused outside her study, where soft light still glowed through the doorway. Zira had left her star charts and books scattered across her desk when she decided to venture out. The human seemed curious about the light and stepped closer to investigate. This was when Zira made her second impulsive decision of the night. "Hello," she said softly in English, stepping out from the shadows. The human spun around, startled but not frightened. In the gentle light from her study, Zira could see the human's face clearly for the first time. This was a young man with kind eyes and an expression of intelligent curiosity. He wore simple clothes and carried a small device that was probably a translation unit. For a moment, they stared at each other in mutual surprise. Zira waited for the usual reaction, the look of horror or disgust that appeared on every face when people saw her silver scales. She pulled her cloak closer around herself, preparing to flee when the human showed his revulsion. But the expected reaction never came. Instead, the human's eyes widened with what looked like amazement. He gazed at her silver scales where they caught the light at her throat and hands. His mouth opened slightly, and he said something in English that his translation device rendered as magnificent. Then he switched to clearer words that the device translated perfectly. "You're the most beautiful being I've ever seen." Zira stood frozen in shock. No one had ever called her beautiful. No one had ever looked at her with such genuine admiration. This had to be some kind of mistake or cruel joke. She turned and fled back to her tower, her heart pounding with confusion and something that might have been hope. Behind her, she heard the human call out, "Wait, please." But she did not stop running until she reached her chambers and locked the door behind her. That night, Zira lay awake replaying the encounter over and over. The human had looked at her as if she were something precious, not cursed. The words, "most beautiful," echoed in her mind in the human's gentle voice. But it could not be real. No one found her beautiful. This human simply did not understand Valdorian culture, did not know that her silver scales marked her as defective and unworthy of love. Once someone explained the truth, the human would understand his mistake. Still, as dawn approached, Zira found herself hoping that maybe, just maybe, the human had meant what he said. The next morning brought a surprise that would challenge everything Zira believed about herself and her worth. When she opened her study door to retrieve the breakfast tray that servants left outside each day, she found something else waiting. A small package wrapped in soft cloth sat beside her meal. Inside was a book with text in both English and Valdorian. The title read, "Songs of Beauty, Poetry from Earth." A simple note was tucked between the pages. For the magnificent princess in the tower. Beauty takes many forms across the universe. On my world, silver has always been precious. Sam. Zira clutched the book to her chest, silver scales shimmering as her hands trembled. The human had returned. The human had left her a gift and signed it with his name. Sam. She opened the book and began to read, discovering for the first time in her life that somewhere in the universe, there existed people who celebrated difference instead of fearing it. Zira had spent the entire day reading the poetry book, discovering words and ideas that changed how she saw herself. The poem spoke of beauty in snow-capped mountains, silver moonlight, and precious metals that humans treasured. One poem described a woman with silver hair as crowned with starlight. Another celebrated the beauty of being unique in a world that demanded sameness. When she heard soft footsteps in the corridor outside her study, Zira's heart began racing. She recognized the gentle way Sam moved, different from the heavy steps of Valdorian guards or servants. "Princess." Sam's voice came through the doorway. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." Zira appeared at the entrance, still clutching the book. "You came back. I said I would." Sam smiled and held up another small package. "I brought something else from Earth. May I come in?" Zira hesitated. Palace protocol forbade this kind of meeting. If anyone discovered a human in her private chambers, both of them would face serious consequences. But something about Sam's kind expression made her step aside. "Your study is amazing," Sam said, looking around at her star charts and books. "You're a scholar." "I study alone," Zira replied. "No one else wants to learn with me." Sam moved to her desk where detailed maps of nearby star systems were spread out. "These are incredible. You made these yourself?" "Yes. I study the stars because they are far away and cannot judge my appearance." Zira's voice was barely above a whisper. Sam turned to face her directly. "Your appearance is not something to be judged. It's something to be celebrated. You do not understand. In my culture, golden scales show royal blessing. Silver scales mean I am cursed, defective, unworthy of love or respect. Then your culture is wrong. Sam's words were simple but firm. On Earth, we have a saying. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It means each person sees beauty differently. What one person finds beautiful, another might not. But that doesn't make either person right or wrong. Sam opened the new package and pulled out a small device. This is a camera from Earth. I want to show you something. Sam activated the device and projected images onto the wall. Pictures of Earth appeared, showing mountains covered in silver snow, rivers reflecting silver moonlight, and buildings made of gleaming silver metal. This is how humans see silver, Sam explained. We consider it one of our most precious metals. We make jewelry from it, use it in our most important ceremonies, and write songs about its beauty. When I look at your scales, I see something we would treasure. Zira stared at the images. She had never thought of her scales as resembling anything beautiful. They were simply the mark of her wrongness, her failure to be what her family needed. But why does it matter what one human thinks, she asked. My people will always see me as cursed. Sam sat down across from her. Because what I think proves that your people's view is not the only truth in the universe. There are billions of beings across countless worlds, and many of them would see you as I do. Beautiful, unique, precious. Over the next few weeks, Sam continued visiting Zira each evening. They talked about their different worlds, sharing stories and ideas that helped Zira see beyond the narrow confines of Valdorian culture. Sam told her about Earth's many countries, each with different standards of beauty. In some places, pale skin was prized. In others, dark skin was considered most attractive. Some cultures celebrated tall people, others preferred shorter builds. What remained constant was that humans had learned to appreciate diversity. We used to fight about these differences, Sam admitted. But we learned that our variety makes us stronger. When everyone thinks the same way, problems don't get solved. When we include different perspectives, we find better answers. Zira shared her knowledge of stellar cartography, explaining how she had mapped safe routes through dangerous nebulae and asteroid fields. Sam listened with genuine interest, asking intelligent questions that showed real understanding. You're brilliant, Sam said one evening after Zira explained a complex calculation for predicting solar storms. Your mind works differently from others, doesn't it? You see patterns they miss. My tutors say I think strangely, Zira replied. Strange thinking often leads to the best discoveries. On Earth, our greatest scientists and artists were people who thought differently from everyone else. For the first time in her life, Zira began to feel that her differences might be strengths rather than weaknesses. During their conversations, Sam also shared personal experiences. I was different too, growing up. I learned languages easily while other children struggled with just one. Some classmates called me weird for preferring books to sports. But those differences led me here, to this amazing opportunity to meet you and learn about your culture. You really think I'm beautiful? Zira asked one evening, still struggling to believe it. Sam's answer was immediate and certain. I think you're the most beautiful person I've ever met. Not just your appearance, though your silver scales are stunning. Your mind, your kindness, your courage to keep learning even when others discourage you. Everything about you is beautiful. Zira felt something warm growing in her chest, an emotion she had never experienced before. Could this be what love felt like? Not romantic love necessarily, but the simple love of being truly seen and accepted by another being. Their secret meetings continued for 3 weeks. Sam taught Zira English phrases while she shared Valdorian history and science. They laughed together over the differences in their cultures. Sam described Earth foods while Zira explained Valdorian cooking methods. These conversations filled the lonely spaces in Zira's heart with something she had never known she was missing. But their peaceful friendship was about to be tested in ways neither could imagine. The attack came without warning on a quiet morning. Zira was reviewing star charts in her study when alarms began sounding throughout the palace. She looked out her window and saw ships descending from the sky, but these were not friendly vessels. The attackers were Keth raiders, a warrior species known for striking without provocation and taking prisoners to sell as slaves. Palace guards rushed through the corridors, shouting orders to evacuate the royal family to underground bunkers. But in the chaos, no one came for Zira. As usual, she was forgotten in her tower. From her window, she watched the battle developing. Valdorian defense ships rose to meet the attackers, but the Keth had chosen their timing well. Most of the royal fleet was away on training exercises, leaving the planet poorly defended. Sam burst into her study, breathing hard from running. Zira. Thank the stars you're safe. The humans are being evacuated, but I couldn't leave without making sure you were protected. No one remembers to protect me, Zira said quietly, watching explosions light up the sky. I am not important enough to save. You're important to me. Sam moved to stand beside her at the window. But we need to get you to safety. Where are the bunkers? I do not know. They never told me. Zira's voice remained calm despite the danger. She had accepted long ago that her family did not consider her worth saving. More Keth ships appeared, using the nearby nebula as cover for their approach. Valdorian defenders struggled to track them through the swirling cosmic dust and energy fields that made sensors unreliable. Suddenly, Zira straightened with realization. The nebula. They are using the Zarn Nebula to hide their movements. How do you know? I have been studying it for years. The nebula has specific patterns of density and energy flow. Ships can hide in certain areas, but they cannot stay there long without damage to their engines. Sam grabbed her shoulders. Can you predict where they'll come out? Yes. Zira moved to her desk and began spreading out detailed charts of the nebula system. The safe passages follow these routes. If the Keth entered here, they must exit there within the next 20 minutes or risk losing power. We have to tell the defense forces. They will not listen to me. I am the cursed princess. Sam activated a communication device. Then we'll make them listen. Can you calculate the exact exit points? Zira's mind raced as she studied her charts. Years of patient observation and calculation had given her knowledge that no one else possessed. Her different way of thinking, the same trait that made others consider her strange, now allowed her to see patterns in the nebula that traditional military minds missed. Here, she said, marking 3 locations. They will emerge at these coordinates within 18 minutes. But there is something else. What? Zira pointed to another section of her charts. There is a hidden passage through the nebula that leads directly to the palace. The Keth probably do not know about it because it requires navigation through electromagnetic storms that confuse most species. But my scales allow me to sense electromagnetic fields differently. Sam stared at her. Your scales are sensors. Silver conducts energy differently than gold. I can feel electromagnetic fluctuations that others cannot detect. That is why I see patterns in space phenomena that escape other observers. The thing that makes you different is exactly what we need to save everyone. For the first time in her life, Zira realized that her curse might actually be a gift. Working together, they contacted the Valdorian Defense Command and the human ships that had arrived to assist. Sam translated while Zira provided precise coordinates for intercepting the hidden Keth forces. Who is giving us this information? Demanded Admiral Gex over the communication system. Princess Zira, Sam replied firmly. She's the expert on this nebula system. Impossible. The princess knows nothing of military matters. The princess knows everything about stellar cartography, Sam shot back. And right now, that knowledge is the only thing standing between us and defeat. Explosions outside grew closer as the first wave of Keth attackers pushed through Valdorian defenses. Time was running out. Admiral, Zira spoke into the communicator herself, her voice clear and confident. I have studied the Zarn Nebula for 8 years. I know every energy current and safe passage. The Keth will emerge at coordinates 847.2 by 334.7 in 12 minutes. After that, they will use the hidden southern passage to reach the palace. And how could you possibly know that? Because I can sense electromagnetic fields through my silver scales. I can navigate paths through the nebula that would destroy ships guided only by instruments. There was silence on the communication channel. Then Admiral Gex's voice returned, tense with desperation and hope. What are your recommendations, Your Highness? Zira felt a thrill of recognition and respect in the Admiral's tone. For the first time, someone was asking for her expertise because they valued what she could offer. Position the fleet at these coordinates, she said, rattling off precise numbers. When the Keth emerge, they will be disoriented from nebula passage. You will have 3 minutes to disable their ships before they regain full sensor capability. And the hidden passage? I will guide a strike team through it myself. My scales can navigate the electromagnetic storms safely. Your Highness, that's too dangerous. I am the only one who can do it, Zira replied. This is what I was born for. Sam looked at her with admiration and fear. I'm coming with you. Sam, no. It's too risky. You said I'm important to you. Well, you're important to me too. We faced this together. The battle that followed would be remembered as the day Princess Zira saved 2 worlds. Guiding a small strike force through her carefully mapped passage, Zira navigated electromagnetic storms that would have destroyed any ship relying on instruments alone. Her silver scales tingled with each energy surge, providing her with information about safe routes through the chaotic nebula interior. Sam stayed by her side, translating her navigation instructions to human pilots who had volunteered for the dangerous mission. Together, they emerged behind enemy lines just as the main Keth force attacked the palace. The surprise assault caught the raiders completely unprepared. While Valdorian and human fleets engaged them from the front based on Zira's predictions, the strike team disabled their command ships from behind. Victory came swiftly once the Keth lost coordination. The raiders retreated, but not before every being on both worlds learned the name of their savior. Princess Zira, the silver-scaled outcast, had proven herself the most valuable member of the royal family. When the celebrations began that evening, Zira found herself in the palace's great hall for the first time in years. Nobles and officials who had spent her lifetime avoiding her now approached with respect and gratitude. Your Highness, Admiral Gex bowed deeply. Your knowledge and courage saved us all. I apologize for ever doubting your worth. But the moment that mattered most came when Sam took her hand in front of both species gathered in the hall. This is Princess Zira, Sam announced in both languages. The most brilliant strategist and most beautiful soul in any galaxy. She saved all our lives because she had the courage to be herself. Looking around the hall, Zira saw faces filled with admiration, respect, and something she had never seen before. Acceptance. Her silver scales caught the light from 100 candles, and for the first time, she found their glow beautiful. I am not cursed, she said quietly to Sam. No, Sam replied. You're blessed. We all are, to know you. That night, as celebrations continued throughout the capital, Zira stood again at her window. But this time, she was not alone. Sam stood beside her, and they watched the stars together. Thank you, Zira said. For what? For seeing me when everyone else was blind. For teaching me that being different can mean being special. Sam smiled. Thank you for teaching me that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about recognizing the perfection in someone real. The Silver Princess had learned the most important truth in any galaxy. Love sees beyond surface appearances to the extraordinary person within. And sometimes, the very thing that makes us different is exactly what the universe needs. From that day forward, silver scales became a symbol of honor in Valdorian culture. And across both worlds, people learned that true beauty comes in countless forms, each one precious and worthy of love. Zira had found her place in the universe at last. Not as a cursed princess hidden away in shame, but as a beloved hero whose differences had saved them all.